A young American archaeologist vanishes inside a forgotten tomb and wakes up in an ancient civilization lost to history. Trapped in a war-torn era of quest and spiritual terror, she's hunted by a monstrous figure, Zareth, with glowing eyes and fangs, born from ancient curses. As she runs for her life through burning jungles and haunted ruins, a mysterious warrior, Kale, appears from the shadows to protect her. She's terrified, disoriented, caught in a world of collapsing empires and sacred secrets. Every corner holds danger. Every step could be her last. Time itself has betrayed her, but what brought her here, and who's really watching from the dark? I was 24, just finished my master's degree in archaeology. A solo trip felt right. Something wild, something real. I booked a cheap Airbnb near Cain del Mapache, New Mexico. The host didn't ask questions. The place was quiet, dusty, and close to an old excavation site. I went alone. The second afternoon, I followed a map I got from a local, just a rough sketch. Trails crossed with forgotten symbols. I found the entrance under a ridge, half buried in roots and old stone. My flashlight flickered, but curiosity kept me moving. The air changed inside, cold and dry. The walls were carved with figures I didn't recognize. Not Aztec, not Mayan, something older. I stepped further in. My hand brushed the wall. The stone pulsed. My vision blurred. The sound of wind vanished. The ground beneath me shifted and I fell. Not far, but when I stood up, the passage behind me was gone. Outside, the sky was orange. Smoke rose in the distance. I was no longer in New Mexico. Not in the now. The trees were taller, the air thicker. Men in armor ran past me, shouting in a language I couldn't place. I hid behind a tree, heart thudding. That's when I met him. Kale. Tall, dark hair, eyes like burning silver. He grabbed my arm and whispered in perfect English, "You're not supposed to be here." He pulled me through the underbrush as drums echoed around us. Behind us, someone followed. I saw him once. Tall, face like a cracked skull, no eyes, just green flames in the sockets, his teeth long, 2 fangs. His name was Zareth. Kale said he was once human, now something else. A soul collector, a guardian of the buried. We ran toward the ruins of a collapsed temple. Kale spoke to a woman named Tayla, fierce and covered in old glyphs. She said I crossed through time by mistake. The tomb I entered was a gate. Not all who enter return the same. Some don't return at all. That night we hid in the lower chambers. Zareth found us. I felt it before I saw him. The room chilled. Shadows moved where no light touched. Kale pushed me through a narrow stone tunnel. He stayed to hold him off. I didn't want to leave him. Inside the tunnel I crawled for what felt like hours. The air was wet. Walls pulsed like breathing flesh. I emerged into a chamber filled with artifacts and bones, children's bones, stacked like offerings. I cried. Not for me, for whoever lived this long and died in silence. Tayla found me again. She carried a torch and a blade shaped from bone. We climbed the spiral tunnel toward a light. At the top, another glyph-covered door. I placed my hand on it. The same pulse, it drew me in. I woke up in the Airbnb bed, covered in dust, scratches down my leg, my backpack gone. Only one thing remained, a coin. Ancient, heavy, with a carving of Zareth's face. That night I dreamed of Kale, his voice echoing from somewhere deep. This world doesn't forget those who trespass. I didn't plan to stay another night, but the exit was gone. The tunnel I crawled out from had vanished behind the stone wall. I banged on it, nothing moved. The coin in my pocket felt hot. It pulsed like a heartbeat. I wasn't dreaming. Tayla pulled me away. Her face was calm, but I saw something in her eyes. A flicker of fear. She whispered something in her own language and guided me through another path, deeper into the ruins. The walls whispered as we passed. We reached a hollowed chamber. 5 figures in robes stood around a fire pit. One looked up. A man with long black hair and a jagged scar over one eye. His name was Roan. Tayla said he used to serve the High Temple, until he saw what lived beneath it. I told them I wasn't supposed to be here, that I fell through time. Roan looked at the coin in my hand and froze. He asked where I got it. I told him. He stepped back like it burned him. He said Zareth's mark never appears by accident. Tayla asked what I remembered. I told her about Kale, about the skull-faced thing that chased us. Her face went pale. She said Kale vanished 2 years ago during a temple raid. Everyone thought he was dead, but if I saw him, he was trapped too. Roan insisted we leave before nightfall. He led us up a cracked staircase hidden behind a statue of a serpent god. We moved in silence. The air smelled of stone and earth. At the top, a courtyard opened to the sky. I saw fires across the hills. They were coming. Warriors from the Southern Empire, hundreds of them. Roan said they took every city they touched, burned them to dust. We weren't safe here. Not from Zareth, not from them. I asked where the gate was, the one that brought me here. Taylor said it moved, like it chose when to open and who to take. Roan said he'd seen it once, years ago, a blue light inside the roots of a buried tree. That tree was now under enemy ground. We had to cross it. We waited for nightfall. Roan handed me a cloak, said don't talk, don't look anyone in the eyes. We passed burned fields and broken altars. Bodies lined the road, some wrapped in silk, some left bare. Their faces were peaceful, too peaceful. We reached the forest before dawn. That's when I heard the whisper. Not words, just a sound like breath through bone. Roan stopped, said we were being followed. Taylor motioned for silence. I turned. A shape moved between trees, slow, tall, Perith. He didn't run, he drifted. His eyes were dimmer now, but locked on mine. I felt it, the same pressure in my chest, like gravity. My legs wanted to fold. Roan grabbed my hand and pulled. We ran. No trail, just roots and shadows. I slipped, hit the ground. When I looked up, Zareth stood over me. No sound, just presence. Then Kale's voice broke through the dark. He tackled Zareth from the side. They crashed into the underbrush. Roan pulled me again. We found the tree, twisted, black roots, hollow in the center. Roan reached in and lit a torch. A light flickered deep inside, the same blue glow I saw in the tomb. I stepped forward. The air bent around me. Time shifted. Kale stumbled out of the trees, bleeding, not wounded, just exhausted. He told me to go, said the gate wouldn't stay open. Not long. I looked at him. He nodded once. I stepped into the light. I woke in a hospital bed. They said I was found unconscious at the excavation site, dehydrated, no injuries. My backpack was missing, my camera too, only the coin remained. Still warm, still marked. Kale's voice still echoes sometimes, in the quiet, when the lights flicker, when I'm alone too long. I dream of the tree, of the ruins, of Zareth's gaze, and I wonder if the gate ever really closed. I hadn't slept much since coming back. My mind kept returning to that coin, to Kale's voice. I tried going back to my normal routine, but even my apartment felt thinner, like the walls weren't as solid as they used to be. I stopped turning off the hallway light. 2 weeks later, I met Elsie. She was in my anthropology class, quiet, sharp, loved forgotten languages. We started talking after class one afternoon. She asked if I believed in liminal spaces. I told her I had a story. She said she had one too. She invited me to a cabin she rented up north. Said it used to be a temple long ago. Indigenous site, never fully studied. I was curious, nervous, but part of me wanted answers, or closure, or something else I couldn't name. We drove up on a Friday. The air changed past the last gas station. Trees got taller, shadows stretched longer than they should have. I chalked it up to the late hour. But when we reached the cabin, I felt it. The ground hum, like something was alive beneath it. Elsie unlocked the door. The inside was clean, old, simple. Wood stove, woven rugs, no signal. She lit a lantern and said we'd be safe here. I asked from what. She didn't answer, just smiled, almost sadly, and unpacked 2 journals and a carved stone disc. That night I heard whispering. Not English, not any language I knew. It came from under the floor. Elsie was still awake, sitting by the window, writing in her journal. I asked her if she heard it. She said yes, and that it always spoke before it moved. I didn't sleep. The next morning, she took me to a clearing behind the cabin. There were markings on the trees, circles, triangles, something like eyes. She said the land was sacred to an old tribe that vanished long before European records began. The word she used was swallowed. We walked deeper. The wind changed. I noticed something carved into the stone slab ahead, a symbol I'd seen in the ruins, the same one etched on Keel's chest. I froze. Elsie touched it. Her voice dropped. She said the gate doesn't just appear, it listens. That night, the lanterns flickered, the walls groaned. I heard footsteps above us, but there was no second floor. Elsie stayed calm. She opened the carved disc and placed it by the window. I watched as the glass fogged over and a shadow passed outside. In the morning, there were feathers on the porch, black, wet, arranged in a spiral. Elsie looked at me and said, "It knows you're here. You brought it back with you." I didn't know what she meant. She pointed to the floorboards, said the same symbol was beneath my bed. I lifted the rug. She was right. That evening, a man came to the cabin. His name was Joran. Weathered face, thick jacket, said he knew the land, said something was waking, not just here, but all across the old paths. People who stepped into the in-between and came back weren't untouched. He looked at me for a long time, then asked if I still dreamed of him. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. That night, something knocked once on the window, then twice on the door, then once again beneath the floor. Joran told us not to respond. He sat in the center of the cabin, lit a candle, and poured something over the carved disc. I couldn't move. My chest felt heavy. The air buzzed. The candle dimmed. Then from the wall behind me a shape emerged. Tall, thin, not quite a man, not quite shadow. Its face was smooth, stretched, without features, but I recognized it. It wasn't Zareth, but it was like him, like something older. A watcher, a gatekeeper. Joran whispered something low and firm. The shape paused, tilted its head, then vanished. When I finally stood, the carved disc was cracked down the center. Elsie said it meant the seal was broken, that whatever marked me in that tomb still remembered my name. We left the cabin the next morning, but I knew I hadn't left anything behind. Not really. Every mirror in my apartment now holds a shimmer, and sometimes when it's late, I hear 3 soft knocks. One from the door, one from the window, one from the floor. I thought distance would help. New city, new job, clean air, but something clung to me. Something quiet. I rented a studio near the coast, surrounded by cliffs and forest. It felt safe at first. Breezes through the window, sound of gulls, space to breathe. One morning I found sand in my bed. Not much, just a thin layer, fine and gray. I hadn't gone to the beach, hadn't opened the windows. I brushed it off, assumed it was nothing. That night I dreamed of footsteps along the shore. The next day I met Corin. He managed the property, always wore the same green sweater, said the place had been built over an old fishing village long gone. Something in his tone felt rehearsed, like he'd said it too many times, like he didn't believe it anymore. He mentioned a guest who'd once left without packing, walked out at midnight, never came back. He laughed when he told it, but I saw his hands shaking slightly. I asked what happened to her. He just said, things settle strange near the cliffs. I tried not to think about it, but that night I heard it. Not waves, not wind, a low sound, breathing, not mine. It came from the floor below. Except I was the only tenant. I stood still, barely daring to blink. The sound continued for 5 slow minutes. The following week I found shells on my windowsill, wet, arranged in a line, 4, always 4. I didn't touch them. I left the door locked, the blinds drawn. When I asked Corin, he changed the subject. Said if I ever felt watched, I wasn't alone. I didn't sleep that night. That weekend, an old friend, Mika, came to visit. She was blunt, skeptical, loved proof. I didn't tell her everything, just said I was hearing things. She stayed one night, left in the morning without saying goodbye. Her bag still in the hallway. I called her. No answer. Later that day, I opened the window. There were 5 shells now, one of them broken. That night, I went to the beach. I needed to know if this was in my head. The fog was thick. I heard the waves before I saw them. Near the shore, I saw someone standing ankle-deep in water. Still. Staring at the horizon, I called out. No reply. I stepped closer. My foot hit something soft, a journal. Micah's name was inside. The pages were wet, but one sentence was clear. The sea remembers. I turned back. The figure was gone. No footprints. Just the sound of water pulling back. I ran home. My front door was open. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. I turned on every light, closed every window. I found another shell on my pillow. This one black, cold to the touch. When I dropped it, it echoed like stone in a cave. The next morning, Corin was gone. His office empty. No trace of him ever being there. The property listing vanished too. I checked the walls, every corner, nothing unusual, until I knocked on the closet wall. Hollow. I pushed. The panel gave way. Behind it was a staircase. Narrow, damp. I descended with my phone light. The air smelled like salt and moss. At the bottom, a room, carved from stone. At its center, a pool. Still, dark, perfectly round. A whisper came from it. My name. I left. Moved out that night. Took nothing. Didn't tell anyone why. I tried to forget. But some mornings, I wake up with sea salt on my skin. 4 shells by the sink, and the faint sound of someone walking barefoot across wet sand. Inside my apartment. I booked the house on a last-minute impulse. Quiet neighborhood, near the desert edge, looked normal. I needed space to think, maybe write, maybe just get away from the noise of everything else. When I arrived, the air was still, thick. The house had a charm to it. Arched doorways, dusty windows, light flickering across old tile. There were wind chimes outside that didn't ring even once. I unpacked. No signal. I didn't mind. First night passed without much happening. On the second morning, I met Cassian. He lived 3 houses down, wore wide hats, and moved like someone who had nothing left to rush for. He offered me lemons from his tree and asked if I'd met the boy yet. I laughed and asked what boy. He didn't answer, just pointed toward the edge of the property. Said sometimes the house remembers who it belonged to. I walked back slower than usual, checked every room. No one was there, but one of the chairs at the table was pulled out. The next night I couldn't sleep. There was humming, just outside the bedroom wall. The melody wasn't familiar, but it sounded like something a child would sing. It stopped when I turned the light on, started again when I lay back down. In the morning, I found a drawing on the counter, crayon on torn paper. A house, a stick figure, a tree. The figure had no face. I tossed it, told myself I brought it with me by accident. That evening, it was back, this time taped to the mirror. Cassian waved when I stepped outside. I asked if this place had a history. He said nothing dark, just strange. People never stayed long. One couple vanished. Another man locked himself in the pantry and refused to leave for a week. Said the walls were breathing. That night, I lit a candle, just for comfort. I placed it on the windowsill and watched it flicker. I closed my eyes for what felt like seconds. When I opened them, the candle was gone. The windowsill was clean, no wax, no trace. I walked room to room, nothing moved, nothing out of place, except the guest room door. It was open now. I hadn't touched it since I arrived. Inside was a single twin bed, neatly made, and on the pillow the candle, still lit. I left the room, slept on the couch with all the lights on. At 3 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hall, small, soft, pacing. When I peeked, there was no one, but the humming was back, closer this time, almost beside my ear. In the morning, I found a note on the kitchen floor, written in careful child handwriting. It said, "Thank you for not waking me." I walked out the front door and didn't return until sunset. I sat in the car and tried to decide whether to leave. I didn't. Something about the house made me feel watched but not threatened. Like whatever it was didn't want to harm me. Just be remembered. I stayed one more night, just to see. That evening, I set out a plate of food and whispered into the air. The next morning, the plate was empty. The room colder. On the table was a new drawing. This time the figure had a face, mine, and next to it another, Cassian's. When I left, I didn't take anything. No photos, no souvenirs. But sometimes when I pass certain windows, I catch a glimpse of that drawing again. Just the edge of it, as if it followed me, as if it's still waiting to be finished. I rented the place because it looked ordinary. Small home, mountain view, clean design, just enough space to breathe after a long year. I didn't even tell anyone where I was going. It felt better that way. Quiet. The host's name was Mira. She met me at the driveway. Soft voice, deep eyes, said very little. Handed me the key, warned me about the fog. Said it came fast in the evenings. I nodded, smiled, thought she was just being kind. The house was colder than expected. Not unfriendly, just old. Everything smelled like stone and dried sage. I settled in, opened my journal, and started sketching again. It had been months since I last drew anything at all. The first night, I dreamed I was underground. Not buried, but enclosed. A narrow tunnel with polished walls. At the end, a door made of glass. I could see someone behind it. I reached out, my hand passed through. I woke with my arm outstretched. The window beside the bed was open. I never opened it. I checked the lock. It was still latched. I closed it, went back to bed, tried not to think. The second night, I heard movement upstairs. There was no upstairs, just the roof and sky. I stayed in bed, eyes on the ceiling. The steps moved slowly, stopped above the bed, then silence, like something waiting. In the morning, I asked Mira if anyone had ever stayed long. She said one couple did years ago. They left early, never said why. Then she said something strange. Some houses listen harder than others. That evening, I found a notebook tucked behind the bedroom dresser. Small, weathered, half full. The handwriting didn't match mine, but the drawings did. Same lines, same shapes. One page showed a door, just like in my dream. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the lights on. I kept the windows shut. Around 2 a.m., the hallway light flickered. Not once, 3 times. Then I heard it again, the footsteps, this time inside, just down the hall. I called out, no answer, but something moved, a shift in air. I walked slowly toward the kitchen, no one there. Then I saw it, a faint outline on the glass patio door, a handprint, small, like a child's, but upside down. The next day, Mira left a jar of salt by my door. No note, no explanation. I brought it inside, placed it on the table. That night, the jar cracked without being touched. A thin line down the middle, like something had pressed from within. I tried to leave the next morning. My car wouldn't start. No signal, no neighbors. The road behind me was fogged in, too thick to see. I waited, an hour, 2. When I turned around, the front door was wide open. Inside, the lights were off, the windows fogged from the inside. I walked room to room, everything in its place, until I reached the hallway. There was a mirror I hadn't noticed before, tall, narrow, carved frame. In the reflection, I wasn't alone. There was someone standing behind me, pale, still, no face, just the shape of a head and hands. I turned, no one, looked back, still there in the glass. It raised its arm, so did I, but not at the same time. I covered the mirror with a blanket, slept in the chair near the fireplace. No dreams, just silence. In the morning, Mira knocked, asked if I was okay. I said yes. She looked at me for a long moment, then said, "The house remembers you now." I left that afternoon. Weeks later, in my apartment back home, I noticed something carved on my bathroom mirror. Same narrow lines, same strange door. I cleaned it,